Hello, this is Darren DePaul, the voice of Emperor Valkorion, and you're watching another video by Vulkk.
Greetings, my friends. This is Vulkk, and I'm coming before you with the new and updated Star Wars The Old Republic 5.0 Annihilation Guide. Since I've worked really hard in the last couple of weeks to make all of the 4 guides for Watchman, Annihilation, Combat, and Carnage, I've actually made, hopefully you would agree with me, a very decent presentation in written form on my own website with a lot of details for all of the guides in terms of introductions, changes to the class with the new patch, stats and gearing, and then we have a very expanded portion with the abilities and priorities where I've actually structured things in passive abilities, active abilities, utilities. This video is going to talk in great detail about utilities because a couple of times during the written guides, when you're reading them, you will see me referring to this upcoming video, because I don't want to spend too much time describing utilities in a written form, since it's easier and better to show them to you. We've got ability priorities and a template for an opener for the Annihilation. Exactly the same template has been used for all of the 4 specs for my favorite class, Sentinel and Marauder. And at the end, we've got a conclusion: who is this discipline designed for? And a few thanks in the end to things and people that have helped me around. Now, let's jump in game. This is Corks. His stats are not balanced. Please pay attention to that. My gear is all over the place in legacy format across all other characters. So the stats here are not important. If you want to hear and see the optimal stats, you will need to visit the stats and gearing section on the written guide on my website, and you will find a detailed explanation as to what accuracy, critical, alacrity, and master you need to have, as well as quick tips of how to gear up for endgame. There are very important tips. Do not follow best in slot selection, because you will suffer and you will gimp your character very seriously during the upgrade process. What this video is going to focus on, though, is a quick tip for the opener and a very brief explanation of the ability priorities. Again, for more details, you will have to visit the links down below in the description. The ability priorities goes just like before. Not much has changed in patch 5.0, so we still have a huge priority on the dots coming from Force Rend, Rupture, combined with Deadly Saber. The next is Annihilate, because it has to be used on cooldown, and it is the hardest hitting ability. With patch 5.0, Ravage took a hit in terms of raw DPS, damage dealt, but it also has been redesigned to not take two global cooldowns, so 3 seconds. It is an instant ability now and deals less damage. However, for a free ability that takes only 1 global cooldown, it still deals a very nice amount of damage, so don't underestimate it. It's not really a nerf. It actually speeds up the flow of the ability priorities and just the general gameplay of the Sentinel and Marauder. I'm going to very quickly demonstrate before you a template for an opener, even though it's really on the website, but you can't have, as I was told several times in the past years, you can't have a video guide without displaying a template for an opener. First, the priority list that I've mentioned goes for both single target and AoE. The additional change for the AoE is that you want to use Sweeping Slash combined with, we'll talk about that later on, with Path Carver, or preferably you would definitely need to use Smash, because Smash is the one ability that spreads your dots. Now let me see, where was it? There we go. Hemorrhaging Smash reduces the cooldown of Smash by 9 seconds and the rage it consumes by 1. In addition, Smash deals 30% more damage and spreads your Rupture and Force Rend's bleeding to target it hits, if it hits a target already affected by those bleeds. So you apply the bleeds to 1 target and then you spread it to all of the other targets in the area that you can reach with the Smash. What that means is, let me quickly demonstrate you on the dummy. I'm using Force Rend, I'm using Rupture. Yes, I'm mousing over so you can see the ability descriptions. Playing with the mouse is not good. You need keybinds, and if you haven't played with keybinds in the past, just I would refer you to here somewhere or down below in the description my keybinding guide video. Again, priority for spreading dots is Rupture, Force Rend, and quickly after that Smash. Yes, of course you would like to have a Deadly Saber all the time, but that's not for spreading dots. And it's important to note that Smash takes only 5 meters range around your character, so be careful where you position yourself and how far away are your next AoE target. For the single priority, we've already talked about that, and let's go into the opener. You want to start, if that's possible, of course, depending on the fight, you want to start with Force Charge, and then you would immediately use Deadly Saber. After that, you have to build your resources with Battering Assault, then follow the dots. I start first with Force Rend and then Rupture. After that comes the fun part. If you have pre-built your Fury stacks, you want to use Berserk. If not, then you will have to use Frenzy and then Berserk, because Berserk has a very nice buff and boost to your dots. Then after that, you would go eventually to Bloodthirst, again, depending on your situation, whether you're soloing stuff, whether you're in a group. Bloodthirst in a group is always to be used in conjunction with other raid buffs, so be careful what you're doing and how you're doing it. After that, we have Annihilate. There is an option to include Annihilate before the dots, and actually that's the way I prefer it. So let me show you again the priority system from scratch. You Force Charge, you use a Deadly Saber, then you use Annihilate. Why? Because you're building up stacks, and you need those Juyo stacks. Where the hell did it go? You need the Juyo stacks to stack up so you can actually benefit from them. Then you go with the dots, Force Rend, and Rupture, and after that you would use eventually a Ravage, then you go to a dual Saber Throw, and starting with the fillers, and so on and so on. I have a more and hopefully better detailed explanation in a written form, so I don't know which one you prefer. Maybe the video form, maybe the written form. In terms of utilities, now let me reset this, because again they are experimental from whatever I've been doing in the previous gameplay session for my Marauder. We start with the utilities, which are pretty much the same, bear the same importance, or have the same importance for both of the specs that you would find guides about on my website and on my YouTube channel, Carnage and Annihilation. There is a very, very small difference in maybe a couple of utilities that benefit more one of the two specs, but you should really consider the utility builds unique and valid for both specs. Starting with the Cloak of Carnage, one of the most important utilities that I usually keep on all of the time. We then go to Inexorable. I apologize for reading names wrong. This is something I like doing and I can't really escape it. Primarily a PvP boost. You generate 4 rage when stunned, immobilized, put to sleep, or knocked around, and so on and so on. Path Carver is a must-have for AoE environments. You can actually afford to use it in a general kind of utility build, but that depends, of course, what you're doing. Really, really good for AoE situations where you want to use Sweeping Slash in conjunction with your dots. Moving on to Cloak of Rage, a very good combination with Cloak of Carnage. I usually keep both of these active at the same time, and they are kind of my must-have utilities on all kinds of builds. Brazen increases your damage reduction by 2%, and you build 2 Fury when attacked. This Fury building effect cannot occur more than once every global cooldown. Brazen is another must-have utility, but it actually depends on what you're doing and how much damage you're taking. If you're not taking any damage, you're not building Fury quick, so that depends on the boss encounter. Of course, it's kind of a must-have for PvP. But then again, we have so many other utilities good for PvP that the choice is actually hard sometimes. Overwhelm gives a boost to your Ravage, and it immobilizes the target for 3 seconds. Only ever useful for PvP. I personally never take it in any situation. When you spend 3 points in Skillful, you will be able to use Masterful utilities. We start with Interceptor, Force Charge, Force Rend, Devastating Blast, and Obliterate. Snare the target, reducing its movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Only ever useful in PvP and quite nice actually for chasing healers, for example. Subjugation reduces the cooldown of Obfuscate by 15 seconds and increases its range by 6 meters. In addition, the cooldown of Disruption is reduced by 2 seconds, and Cloak of Pain can be used while stunned. Situational ability has its uses in both PvP and PvE, primarily for PvP. I personally very rarely take it on. Phantom increases your movement speed by 50% and the movement speed bonus of Force Camouflage by 20%. Additionally, it increases the duration of Force Camouflage by 2 seconds. It's one of the better utilities, if not the must-have for PvP, very situational in PvE environment. Defensive Row reduces the damage taken from area effects by 30% and increases the internal and elemental damage reduction by 3%. In those very rare occasions where you don't care about incoming damage on your character or damage taken by your character, you can scratch that ability. In pretty much any other case, which is the majority of gameplay situations in the game, you want to have defensive row in your build. Strangulate reduces the cooldown of Force Choke by 15 seconds. I very rarely use it. You can actually combine it with Ruthless Aggressor, which is one of the new utilities, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So this is a very situational. I usually don't use Strangulate. Relentless. Predation no longer requires or consumes Fury, but it will go on cooldown for 30 seconds when activated. Since for pretty much any spec of the Marauder, Berserk is the primarily used buff when it comes to the 30 stacks of Fury. Predation is really useful to be not dependent on the Fury stacks, because many of the boss fights and PvP as well benefits your gameplay from having an extra speed run boost. When you spend more points, when you spend 4 points in total, you unlock the heroic utilities. We start with Unbound. When Predation is applied or refreshed, it purges movement impairing effects. Additionally, the movement speed bonus of Predation is increased by 30%. Very situational. Usually not an ability. I take pretty much all of the utilities, not abilities, from the heroic module or section. I understand them as very situational. I accept them as very situational, and I don't recommend them to have any of them in your all-purposes build. Why? Let's talk about that. Maiming Reach increases the range of Crippling Slash to 10 meters. Additionally, Crippling Slash now consumes 2 less rage and immobilizes the target for 3 seconds. This immobilizing effect can be applied to the same target, cannot be applied to the same target more than once every 10 seconds. And Crippling Slash is an extremely useful ability for PvP. This is one of the most important utilities for PvP environments, be it solo PvP, roaming in the open world, if anybody still does that, or in war zones and arenas. Brooding reduces the cooldown of Intimidating Roar by 15 seconds. In addition, you build up to 30 Fury over the course of using Jano Hatred. This effect can happen only once every 30 seconds. Very situational, good for preparational moments before you start parsing and bashing the dummy, for example, or kind of useful for some specific boss fights. I personally like that utility for PvP as well, but unfortunately it's not always useful. It depends on the pace of the war zone or the arena. It's almost never useful in the arena. Cloak of Annihilation each use of Assault, Battering Assault, and Crippling Slash reduces the active cooldown of Cloak of Pain by 3 seconds. Well, Cloak of Pain is only on a 1 minute cooldown, and it is both defensive and offensive buff for yourself, and lowering its cooldown is actually beneficial because you already have, in most cases, as I've told you, Cloak of Carnage and Cloak of Rage. So considering considering having Cloak of Annihilation, if you can afford the points, might actually be a good choice, depending again on what you are doing. Still though, be aware that Cloak of Pain is supposed to be defensive ability. It does have offensive boost, but it's very minor. It's still a boost though. Next we move on to Undying. Increases the duration of Undying Rage by 2 seconds and reduces its cooldown by 30 seconds. Undying Rage is extremely situational. I personally don't recommend this in PvP because 3 minutes cooldown lowered by 30 seconds is still a very long cooldown and you can't really rely on Undying Rage. However, in some boss encounters, it's really useful, and right away in my mind pops up the Fight Master and Blaster, 4th boss encounter in the Ravager's operation. The last one from the heroic section is Expunging Camouflage. Force Camouflage removes all cleansable effects when activated. Very, very situational once again. Extremely useful for boss fights such as the Underlurker, or as I prefer to call it, Underbugger, 3rd boss in Temple of Sacrifice operation. Moving down to the last section, the legendary utilities. Through Victory, Mad Dash can be used while immobilized, purges movement impairing effects while activated, and deals 50% more damage. Additionally, the cooldown of Mad Dash is reduced by 10 seconds. Mad Dash is a relatively new ability, and it's very, very situational, interesting and cool to use in PvP because of its low cooldown. But I personally do not recommend you taking Through Victory for PvE environments almost anywhere. It's not really beneficial. Blood Ward. Activating Saber Ward grants immunity to stun, sleep, lift, and incapacitating effects for 6 seconds. And getting attacked while Saber Ward is active heals you for 3% of your maximum health. This healing effect cannot occur more than once every second. So, Saber Ward is actually a very powerful defensive ability, but the fact that it's on a 3 minutes cooldown means you will not benefit much from spending 1 point on Blood Ward. I do not recommend this utility. Maybe you can find uses for it, but it's very, very rare. Thirst for Rage. Bloodthirst generates 12 rage, which is the maximum amount of resource points you can have when activated, and you heal for 1% of your maximum health whenever you activate an ability that consumes rage. Extremely situational. I personally don't remember a single time when I've picked up Thirst for Rage and used it in any kind of gameplay. Interceptor. Force Charge grants Interceptor. It's actually one of the new utilities. Very good one. Allowing you to activate Force Charge a second time. Interloper lasts up to 7.5 seconds, and it's removed if Force Charge is reused. If Interloper is not used by the end of the duration, 7.5 seconds, Force Charge is placed on a 7.5 seconds cooldown. Additionally, Force Charge now builds to Fury. Really, really useful. I highly recommend it in all kinds of PvP and PvE environments. And since Force Charge is by default on 15 seconds cooldown, it says 14.6 because I have some alacrity in the current gear on my character right now. You really, really want to have that utility because it doesn't actually hurt Force Charge at all. You actually have a chance to use it twice instead of just once every 15 seconds. Moving down the line, the next one is Hidden Savagery. While Force Camouflage is active, you gain a charge of Hidden Savagery every half second. Each charge of Hidden Savagery increases the damage dealt by your next melee attack by 4%, and it stacks up to 12 charges and lasts for up to 6 seconds after exiting Force Camouflage. Extremely useful in some PvP environments where you actually need Force Camouflage for whatever cases. I don't see any use for that ability in PvE environments because you don't spend your time stealthed, right? That's not the role of the Marauder. The last one is called Ruthless Aggressor, very cool one and one of the new utilities as well. Vicious Throw refunds 2 rage when used on a target affected by your Obfuscate and can be used on any target affected by your Obfuscate. Regardless of remaining health, Additionally, activating Obfuscate grants you Ruthless Aggressor, increasing your force and tech resistance by 75% for 6 seconds. So this utility is very situational, again, depending on what you do and how you play and what kind of enemy or enemies you have in front of you. But basically it benefits Force Throw, which is supposed to be right here, and Obfuscate, which is right here now. You can pause the video and read the descriptions of both of these abilities. Obfuscate is usually not very popular in PvE unless you have that utility. And as I've mentioned earlier, you can use it in conjunction with Subjugation, because Subjugation also deals with Obfuscate. So if you have one of those, you might want to have the other one utility as well. And with this, I think it's time to wrap up the video. Thank you guys for enjoying it. Down below in the video description, you're going to find more and a lot of useful links for your Carnage Marauder, Combat Sentinel, and all the other versions of guides. See you next time. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Click the like button and help me out. Visit my website vulkk.com for daily videos and news. To help me improve and expand, consider becoming my patron with a small monthly pledge. And stay in touch by following me on Facebook and Twitter.